Hi friends, Vinay Kumar here, international NLP and IAS coach. In this video, my dear friends, let us discuss about environment impact assessment, which is in news in recent times. Now, environment impact assessment is not new. It's been there for more than 2 to 3 decades now in India, with the process of environmental clearance and all that gathering seriousness way back from 1996 and 1997, my dear friends. But then a lot of news has been there around environment impact assessment, making it an important area for us to know for both our means and our interview, my dear friends. Now, as you all know, what environment, as you all know, environment impact assessment is assessing the likely impact that a proposed developmental activity or project may have on environment. Okay, you know very well, any developmental activity or project may have some impact on environment. If we are able to predict, identify, uh, assess, and even help in mitigating the impact, then that ecological consciousness is there, my dear friends. That ecological conservation is there. Are you connecting to what I'm trying to tell you, my dear friends? So, what environment impact assessment as a tool seeks to do is exactly this. It assesses the impact that these developmental projects or activities can have on the environment, and it tries to mitigate the adverse consequences, my dear friends. Fair enough? Connecting to what I'm trying to tell you? Superb. Now, see why it has become so very important for our current affairs, both at the stage of mains as well as at the stage of interview, my dear friends. Why has it become so very important? Because there was this draft EIA notification that came out in 2020, and that seeks to replace the one that is in force right now, which is the EIA rules of 2006, my dear friends. Are you connecting to what I'm trying to tell you? Right now, what is in force is the EIA 2006, and this seeks to replace that, with all the new guidelines and new regulations, my dear friends. Okay. Now, the areas around which the EIA has become the EIA 2020 notification, the areas around which EIA 2020 has become controversial is what has become an important area for us to study for both means and interview, my dear friends, because there can be a question from there on environmental ethics. There can be a question asked in our interview on how good is the draft EIA 2020, or how well it balances the needs of growth and ecological sustainability. Fair enough, my dear friends. Okay, having said that, now first in this video, my dear friends, let me set the context for you. Let me help you come into terms with the major criticisms that are there against the draft EIA 2020. In the subsequent video that we will that in the subsequent video that we will interact upon on the same area, we will incorporate all the recent developments that has happened, the court judgments and all that, my dear friends, and let us see how it's going to unfold and incorporate that into our learning, my dear friends. Fair enough? Okay, but the learning that you're going to have now is going to be very, very important, because it's setting the context for you very clearly on why EIA 2020 may not be all good. Is that okay, my dear friends? So quickly grab your notepad, pen, and make notes of this 5 to 6 important points that I'm going to share with you right now, my dear friends. Okay, because this is context building, 5 to 6 points only, but very important points, my dear friends. It's around this that all the news is there. Fair enough? Okay. So I hope you are ready, my dear friends. Superb. Okay. So coming into these points, The first point that I would like to make a mention of is, my dear friends, the government's notification, the 2020 notification talks about the projects that can be exempt from EIA, the projects that can be exempt from environment impact assessment, number one. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is not having to be put in public domain. Now look at these two parts, my dear friends. One, there are these projects that does not require EIA. Two, government doesn't even have to disclose what those projects are or what those activities are. I mean, it can be completely opaque to public. Now, what is the reason that the government mentions for having this kind of a setup? Having this kind of projects which will be completely opaque to public consideration. What's the one word answer that the government gives? Strategic considerations. Okay, strategic considerations. Very well, my dear friends, governments across the globe have in recent times, not only in recent times, almost all the time, have this tendency to misuse and abuse words like national interest, public welfare, strategic considerations and all that, my dear friends. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you? I mean, so are there any criteria or qualifications for any activity to be called as strategic? Now, does the government, at least for its own reference, have a list of, have a checklist where it can actually qualify some project as, okay, this is a project under strategic consideration? Now, any project that government takes up or someone in collaboration with government takes up, if government can call it strategic with the authority that it has got, can't it justify it? And if it can justify almost any project as a strategic project, then why EIA, why environmental legislations and all that, my dear friends? Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you? Yeah? Perfect, my dear friends. So, this is really an area of major concern, because when you don't have, see, point number one, you don't have specific criteria to call some project as strategic. Two, you don't even disclose it anywhere that, okay, this project is a strategic project and therefore it doesn't have to go through all these environmental clearance process. Are you understanding, my dear friends? Perfect. See, there are two very important areas of governance that you will have to look into in this point, my dear friends. One, there is arbitrary action of a government in qualifying any or all whichever project. There is a clear case of arbitrary action of the government in qualifying a project as a strategic project, my dear friends. Which means what? The transparency and accountability, which are at the roots of good governance, my dear friends, is getting threatened. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you? Adding to that, aren't you weakening another major pillar of good governance, which is participation? See, at the heart of democracy is public participation. If you are keeping public in dark about what you are doing and why you are doing, calling it strategic, okay, then almost anything that the government does, there is always a possibility that it can be designated as strategic and things can be done. Here, my intention is not to criticize the government, my dear friends. Okay, the intention is across the globe, if the governments, retort to these, what do you call these channels, then the governments themselves, to claim legitimacy, to claim credibility, they speak about this good governance, which has all these pillars of rule of law, transparency, accountability, participation. I mean, where is the conformity, my dear friends? Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you? Perfect? That's number one, my dear friends. So you understood the very first point that I spoke about, the very first area of concern that I spoke about, strategic considerations. What is strategic consideration? That was the first point. The second point, my dear friends, if you actually look into the draft, it categorizes the projects in a particular way. It calls, okay, these projects are called A projects, and the union government looks into the environmental clearance appraisal of these projects. There is this B project which is looked into by the state government, and again this B project is divided as B1 and B2, and the one that is in force now, the EIA 2006, my dear friends, it gives discretion to state government to categorize something as B2 project. Now why B is divided as B1 and B2 is B2 projects will generally require less stringent assessment compared to A and B1 projects, which requires more stringent assessment in a process called EC, environmental clearance. Okay. Now what is happening with B2 projects is it's not, you don't have to go through all those stages of environmental clearance, but it's quite easier. Online approval you can get for your projects when it is put under B2, because they may not be damaging environment so much. That's the thinking of the government. This B2 projects will easily get approved generally, my dear friends, and state governments by EIA 2006, state governments have the discretion to categorize projects under B2. All right, my dear friends. And this less stringent process, we generally use the term EP to it. Instead of going through EC, environmental clearance, we go through what is called as environmental permission. Okay, the online approval and less rigorous scrutiny and all that, my dear friends. Are you connecting to what I'm trying? Now, EIA 2020, the draft EIA 2020, in place of, look at here guys, 59 projects that were there in EIA 2006. 2006 EIA, there were 59 projects. EIA 2020 has 110. Now, immediately it raises our eyebrows because we feel, wow, EIA 2020 is an advance over 2006, and there are more number of projects that has come under environmental clearance scanner. Actually, no. Many of these projects which were put under one item has actually been divided, my dear friends, in the 2020. Now, notwithstanding that, what is very important is 2020 EIA has it has predefined the B2 list. Unlike 2006 EIA, which used to give the discretion to the state government to designate some project as B2 depending on the local conditions and unique ecology and all that, my dear friends. Here in the 2020 notification, there has been a predefined list of B2 projects. Now, what does this mean? When you have list of projects under B2, it doesn't require EC, environmental clearance. I mean, it doesn't have to go through all those stages of environmental clearance. It can get cleared under a less stringent process called EP, environmental permission. Like I told you, the online approval and all that, my dear friends. And you know what? The irony is, some of the projects which were in category A, okay, some of the projects which were in category A and which required rigorous process of clearance have been shifted to B2. Something like, see, look at this, my dear friends. In an eco-sensitive area, you are widening the roads or you are expanding the what do you call, the stretch of national highway by around 25 to 100 kilometer. If you take one national highway into consideration, let us say from Jammu to Kanyakumari, then I understand that it's thousands of kilometers. So in comparison to that thousands of kilometers, according to you, a project that will include just the expansion by 25 to 100 kilometers is small. But then in an eco-sensitive area, 25 to 100 kilometers is so much. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you, my dear friends? Did you understand this point? This is a very, very important point. See, if you take, now why is government putting it under B2? It's saying, see, it's just about expanding the national highway by around 25 to 100 kilometers. 25 to 100 out of some 7,000 is small. But if you take a region here, if you take a eco-sensitive region, and there if you are, let's say, bringing in 50 kilometers of national highway where all your huge trucks are going to come and you know huge traffic is going, no, are you understanding, my dear friends? How can that be in B2? And you know, it has become very fashionable now in tourism to get the aerial ropeways, you know, these aerial ropeways, right? Aerial ropeways are not built in air. You have to use a lot of your land to support the aerial ropeways. Yes or no, my dear friends? Now, that has been put under B2. Now, when, see, something like an aerial ropeway, there has to be so much of regional studies that should take into consideration the possibility of avalanches and landslides. And when you are actually coming up with aerial ropeways, remember, my dear friends, why you are going in air is, as people go in air, you want them to go through the core of some ecological region. Yes or no, my dear friends? See, you will not have an aerial ropeway in a desert. You would want to have an aerial ropeway in a region where when people are looking down, they want to see all this charismatic megafauna and all that. Yes or no, my dear friends? Now, what is happening? When you go for aerial ropeways, there is habitat fragmentation and important migratory wildlife corridors are disturbed. Are you understanding? Not only that, without proper engineering design, if you construct this, the technical failures of these projects can lead to major disasters. Could you see, just in an aerial ropeway, we could see so many environmental problems that can ensue. Now, is it something that can be shifted from A to B2? Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you, my dear friends? Is it something that can be shifted to B2? I don't know. Okay. So even one more important project that has been shifted from A to B2 is the exploration of oil and gas, which may include drilling and all that, my dear friends. You know very well, it's not just about mining. Even the exploration of oil and gas involves a lot of pollution, my dear friends. Now, these things raises concern on why EIA 2020 has to do this. Are you understanding, my dear friends? The greatest irony is nowhere in the world, the Minister of Heavy Industries and Minister of Environment can be the same person. Okay, it was the case. Got that? Now I'm trying to tell you. Now, we finished with 2 points, my dear friends. Okay, the first point was about strategic considerations. The second point was about the list, the categorization of projects under different list, and why some projects, the way it has got predefined and the way in which some of the, projects that can actually hamper environment being shifted to B2, where only EP is required. Is that fine, my dear friends? Got that? Superb. The third point that I will have to make a mention of is, my dear friends, now imagine you are an industrialist, or you want to, you have engaged in a developmental project without without going for this rigorous process of environmental clearance. Probably we assume that you're ignorant of the law, okay? You're ignorant of the environmental legislation that is there in the country. You, who's an industrialist, who is someone engaging in a developmental activity in an eco-sensitive area, yeah, we assume that you're ignorant of the laws in the country, and when you, out of your ignorance, without going through the environmental clearance process, you have started off the activity or your industry. Now what? Post facto, what? Now if you are found out, you will be fined, because you have, see, ignorance is no excuse to crime. Got that, my dear friends? Ignorance is no excuse to crime. So if you are found out, you will be penalized because you have violated the norms. Now, look at here. It's a very interesting thing. Is there a possibility that you may become aware after you have started all of this? From your ignorance, is there a possibility that you can move to awareness? Yeah, there is. Someone comes and tells you, hey, have you done EIA? Have you gone through the process of environmental clearance? So you, all of a sudden, you get enlightened, and suo moto you go and reveal to the government that, see, I have been ignorant of the laws in place, I have not gone through this process, so I would want to do it now. The government says promptly, see, for every single day that you have been there in this project without the permissions, these are the penalties. Now, what are the penalties? It's something like, for a B2 project, my dear friends, for a project under B2, it's around 1,000 rupees. For a project under B1, it's around 2,000 rupees. For a project under category A, more, the ones that require a rigorous process, 5,000. Okay, 5,000. If you go and do it suo moto, you go and tell it on your own that, I'm sorry, out of ignorance, I've started this project. Okay, per day, that's the fine. So how many ever days would have happened from the time you would have started it, you will pay so much fine. There are other ways in which there is a government authority can actually find you out that, hey, you are someone without permission or without clearance, you are doing this. Or there can be an appraisal later which will find it, which will find out that you have done things violating the norms. Or there can be a regulatory authority which can find you out. Now, in all these cases, other than you going and suo moto, paying fine by yourself, admitting to whatever violations that you have committed, in any other case that I spoke about, my dear friends, the fine is going to be doubled or even more than that. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you? Perfect. So, what happens when a regulatory authority, I'm just trying to share with you what is in the news, my dear friends. Okay. Is there a possibility that a regulatory authority or any other authority which finds you out can, in lieu of a bribe, okay, ask you to go and file a suo moto application? Possibility. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you, my dear friends? I'll tell you the worst part of it. See, there are already two things that we observed. One, why will a person suo moto go and first of all admit to himself that I have violated? Okay, that's number one. Number two, any other authority finding you out where the fine is going to be in excess may, for a bribe or for any other reason, my dear friends, ask you to go and file a suo moto application by yourself. There is a possibility. I'm just talking from all the news that I have galvanized for a good amount of time, my dear friends. You know what's the worst part? People of that region, or probably any region, affected or unaffected, cannot complain about it. If someone has started a project without clearance, without permission, people do not have any right to go and complain against it. Now, what is this? Are you understanding, my dear friends? So, either when a person has not got the clearance and he is doing things, nor when he is not complying with the norms, even after having started it, in neither of the case, people have any power to go and complain against it. There is a big question mark here. Are we in democracy? Yeah. There's a big question mark here. Why no? I mean, do you see people as so much obstructing governance? But don't you feel in democracy this is something that needs to be accommodated? I mean, that's what is the definition of democracy, no? Yes or no? See, again guys, please know this. These are not views against what I'm just helping you, consolidate all the points that are there, my dear friends. This is one, in fact, in our subsequent video, we'll see how government may be right in doing whatever it's doing. Are you connecting to what I'm trying to tell you, my dear friends? How government justifies its stand, its provisions and all that. Fair enough. But right now, in this video, when my responsibility is to bring to light, my dear friends, all those concerns, criticisms that are there against it, I'm trying to detail it out to you as much as possible and making it simple for you. Are you connecting to what I'm trying to tell you, my dear friends? Okay. So that's number 3. Okay. So, you know what were the 3 things that we spoke about? Fourth thing. Now, any industry or any project proponent who has been given the permission, okay, now there are certain compliances that he will have to go through with. For example, once he is granted the permission after this entire process of environmental clearance and EIA and all that, my dear friends, he has to ensure that he maintains the ecological sanctity of the region, the environmental integrity of the region and all that, my dear friends. And he will have to submit a compliance report to the government that, see, all is well here. I haven't hampered the environment beyond whatever we, came into consensus with the clearance process. Okay. Earlier it used to be at the rate of 6 months. Once in 6 months, you had to submit the report from the time you start the project or from the time you start your industry and all that. But why now, all of a sudden, it has been shifted to 1 year? From 6 months, it has gone to 1 year. Are you connecting to what I'm trying to tell you, my dear friends? Now, that's the 4th thing. And the 5th thing that I want to talk about is, my dear friends, see, you get clearance, you get permission based on some production capacity. Perfect. You are saying, see, so much is my production here, and when I am producing so much, this can be the ecological damage that this developmental activity or production activity is going to have. Finally, you would have got the clearance. Now, any form of enhancement in the capacity, in any way, if you are enhancing your production capacity, don't you feel you will have to go for another, at least less stringent clearance process, my dear friends? Are you understanding what I am trying to tell you? Yeah? But then, for some reason, government says if your production capacity is increasing by 50% from whatever it is there now, you don't require a fresh clearance process. You don't require, clearance process will have all these things in it, my dear friends, including the environment impact assessment. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you, my dear friends? For some reason, it has has said it's okay to increase the production capacity by 50%. Not 5%, not 10%, 50%. You don't need a fresh clearance process. All this have, and then the way in which environmental clearance has been given in India in the last 2 years, my dear friends. They say environment clearance process, which includes four major stages. Most of you would have got to know about it: scoping, screening, and all that, which also includes in its third stage some, public participation, public hearing, and all that, my dear friends. All these things should ideally take around more than a year at least. Even if without much delay dallying, even without much resistance, if the clearance is to be provided, it should take more than a year as a rule. Okay, but in the country, more than 88% of projects have been cleared well within the year, my dear friends. Well within the year. Are you understanding? Okay. Now, adding to this, you have few more concerns like earlier, we had this EIA 2006 and all that. We had this the draft EIA report that the project proponent comes up with. Both the details of the project and the summary will have to be in English and in the regional language, so that people in that region who actually get affected by it, can have full details of the project, and they can express their views, their whatever, my dear friends, opposition to it or encouragement or whatsoever it can be. But for some reason, now it has been diluted to something like this. The project details will be in English and the summary will be in the regional language. Are you connected? Project details and summary in English and only summary in the regional language. I mean, this is something. Why only summary? If let us say a 300-page detail is converted to 30-page, my dear friends, 30 pages. Imagine what all details it can conceal. 300 pages, reduced to 30 pages. How much devil, they say devil lies in the details. How much devil it can eclipse, my dear friends. Are you understanding what I am talking about? I mean, why these strange changes? Why these, changes that makes anyone obvious to doubt? Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you, my dear friends? Anyone, it's so obvious. It's so, what do you call, natural for anyone to think, hey, why are the EIA norms getting diluted? Are you understanding, my dear friends, what I am trying to tell you? Even another important area of concern that environmentalists and have pointed out to is, earlier, once the draft EIA report is out by the project proponent in the environmental clearance process, there used to be 30 days for public to respond to it, my dear friends. That has been reduced to 20 days now. And the reason given by the ministry is this online time and things generally happen quickly. See, all, their livelihoods may be threatened. Their lives may be threatened by the project, because they have become part of the environment now. The people in that region have become part of this environment, and they are at the risk of their lives and livelihoods getting threatened. And you reduce the number of days that they need to understand and respond from 30 to 20. We need to have a new subject, my dear friends, environmental democracy. Are you connecting to what I am trying to tell you? Okay. So in this video, my dear friends, I have tried to simplify to you all the major concerns that have been there around the draft EIA 2020 notification. In our subsequent interaction on this area, my dear friends, in our subsequent video on this area, we will get into greater details. Also, I will talk about how government justifies its stand and some of its provisions that have been criticized. Is that okay, my dear friends? Thank you very much for watching this video and learning from it. Hope, see you in my next video, my dear friends. Thank you.